Hi guys, welcome to this video, and in this video let's analyze the game of Vishy Anand versus Ian Nepomniachtchi. This is game 1 between them in the Legends of Chess tournament. This tournament hasn't been going very well for Vishy because I don't know, he is facing young blood here, and it doesn't seem like his chess has gotten bad or anything. He's not failing to entertain us and give quality chess content in even one of his games, but most of the games, three of his games, he reached Armageddon. And in the Armageddon game, the young blood, they just try to flag him right from the beginning. And Vishy doesn't want to play bad quality chess. He just thinks in every move, and he doesn't even mind about it. So he just wants to give good quality content, and he doesn't care about losing. So this is one such game where Vishy proves his mettle. And in this game, let's go start checking out the game, and we will skip the starting theory part because I don't know, I'm not interested in that, and we'll just skip it to the feisty stuff. So it was a Sicilian defense game played by Vishy and Nepomniachtchi. Vishy was playing with the black pieces, and until this point everything was fairly normal. And after this move, the computer suggests Nepomniachtchi to take the knight immediately, because that knight is a dangerous one. But instead, Nepomniachtchi goes for a weird looking move for me, obviously, and he plays knight to e4, allowing, I think this is a blunder, because he allows queen takes on c1, c2, and after this Nepo goes for bishop to d3, attacking the queen, and Vishy plays queen to a4, going after the bishop, and instead of moving away the bishop, Nepomniachtchi plays b4, blocking the queen's path, and here the fun begins. Vishy plays bishop takes on b4 with check, and in any normal circumstance, if the bishop wasn't placed here, this pawn would have been pinned, because if pawn takes, then the rook would hang. But here, as the bishop is still guarding the rook, the queen can't take the rook, but the queen can capture on b4 with check again, and going after the bishop. But now, even if you block the queen's path with the bishop, this just loses the bishop, because the two pieces are protecting the same square. Now you wouldn't want to capture this knight again and trade down, because you're already down on material. And there is a beautiful move with that knight. You can place the knight on d6 with a check, and this is a nice little outpost for the knight. And after the king moves, with this king move, Vishy is also protecting the g7 pawn, which was under attack, and the queen couldn't capture this pawn because of all the action going around here. And now you may think that the Nepomniachtchi has forked and he is winning a whole piece, but it is not so, because if you try to capture that piece, you get into trouble, because knight to e4 is coming. It's a discovered check, and after that you just win the queen. So you cannot do this at any cost. So Nepomniachtchi goes for kingside castle, and Vishy plays bishop to c6, getting the bishop out of harm's way and keeping an eye on the d7 pawn. So after this move, Nepo goes for rook to c1, putting pressure on the knight, and Vishy plays f5. You don't want to take en passant, because that's a nice outpost for the knight, and you want to hold that there. Now after this move, Nepomniachtchi goes for queen to g5, trying to infiltrate the king side and create some threats, because until now Vishy has been having an easy life. He was the one giving all the threats and developing his pieces, so Nepomniachtchi wants to give his fair share of threats now. And now Vishy goes for queen to d4, going after the bishop and attacking the e5 pawn at the same time. Now there is no good way to protect both the pieces. The only way is to play queen back to g3, keeping an eye on both the pieces, and now there are no threats for black. Now black can just easily push his two beautiful pass pawns, make some useful moves, and after something like this, after the pass pawns are suitably pushed forward, you can just offer a queen trade, and after the queens are traded off the board, there is no stopping of these two beautiful pass pawns. So Nepomniachtchi doesn't want this, and he just gives up that bishop there. After this move, he just gives up the d3 bishop and plays rook to e1, keeping an eye on the e5 pawn. So Vichy grabs the bishop, queen takes on d3, and now Nepomniachtchi goes for queen to h5, threatening mate in 1 by playing queen to f7. So Vichy goes for g5, g6, and now queen to g5. Now he can infiltrate because the pawn is not present there, and if he does that with tempo, then it will be a very quick mate. So Vichy plays king to g8, and now Nepomniachtchi goes for queen to e7, threatening mate in 1 by playing queen to f7. Now Vichy goes for rook to f8, keeping an eye on the f7 square, and here Nepomniachtchi goes for knight to e8, threatening mate in 1 once again by playing queen to g7. So Vichy goes for rook to f7 with attack on the queen, and Nepomniachtchi goes for knight to f6, attacking the checking the king. And after the king moves, knight to h5 was played, and this is a beautiful move because you cannot grab the knight here, because now suddenly the bar drops to 0. This is because you can play queen to g5 with check, and after the king moves you just play queen to d8, and this is a perpetual. You just have to settle for a draw, and Vichy obviously doesn't want this, and he moves the king away. King to h6, going after the knight, and after queen takes the rook, king takes the rook, and now this is a beautiful position. The queen is neatly boxed in by Vichy, because the bishop holds this pawn very well, the rook holds this pawn very well, and it is kind of hard for the queen to get out. So in Nepomniachtchi wants to get rid of some of the threats on the king side, so he plays rook to e3 with going after the queen, and now Vichy goes for knight to e2 with check, and after the king moves, Vichy goes for bishop captures on g2, and this is a brilliancy because you cannot capture back the bishop, because queen to d6 d5 is coming with check, and after the king moves you're gonna pick up the rook, and that's you'll be up the exchange. So you will have to move the king, and at this position Vichy decides to give up his queen for two rooks, and he plays knight captures on c1, and after rook captures queen, knight captures on d3 with check, and he trades off the queen for two rooks. After the king moves, Vichy plays knight captures on e5, keeping an eye on the d7 pawn and attacking the queen at the same time. Now Nepomniachtchi goes for queen to g7, going after both the rook and the knight, and Vichy plays knight back to f3 with a check. King to e3, and now Vichy gives up that pawn, he has to, and he plays rook to c8, now trying to get the rook back into the game. Now Nepomniachtchi grabs the h7 pawn with check, and after the king moves, Nepomniachtchi goes for another check with queen to e7 with check, and after the king moves he goes for h3 with check. Bishop takes on h3, and now queen to d6, getting the queen out of that deadlock and trying to get it back to the defense. Now Vichy starts his barrage of checks, and he plays rook to c3 with check, and after the king moves, rook to after the king moves here, Vichy, now another brilliancy displayed by Vichy. Please pause the video and try to find out the best move in this position for you to win the game as black. If you could find the move, congratulations, you're just amazing. So the move here is bishop to f1 with check, giving up the bishop. The point is, if king takes bishop, Okay, let's discuss if what happens if king doesn't take the bishop. If white sees that it is an obvious trap and he goes for something else, king to d1, obviously rook to d3 is going to check the king and pick up the queen. So that's very obvious and you don't want to do that. Now if king takes on f1, now the fun begins here. You can play rook to c1 with check, and you can't go to g2 because rook to g1 is mate, because the king keeps an eye on the h3 square. Now king has to move towards the rook, and now after rook to e1 with check, and the king will have to vacate this file, and once king gets into the d file, rook to d1 with check, king can't go to the d2 square because the knight is obviously keeping an eye on the d2 square. So after the king moves, you just play rook to d1 and you pick up the queen. After king moves anywhere, you pick up the queen, and you have so many pawns, a rook and a knight for a pawn, and you can convert as many queens as you want. So Nepo obviously knew this, and after this move, Nepo resigned the game. So a brilliancy showed by Vishy, and he until Vishy is there in the game, the entertainment is still gonna remain. And Vasily Ivanchuk, Magnus Carlsen, they are also they make the game very much fun as well. So this was a beautiful game that I wanted to show you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks a lot for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. Thank you.